How a simple mistake turned into family chaos. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Phones were buzzing on the kitchen counter like wasps trapped in a jar. I'm Evan, 30, the steady one with a modest job in a hospital lab, the guy who labels vials right, logs chain of custody, and believes order keeps people alive. Precision is my oxygen. The irony isn't lost on me. I mislabeled a file last Thursday at 7:42 p.m. Sent it to our family chat, and now the house that raised us might be on the market. I meant to share a PDF recipe Lena asked for, my lemon bars, the ones Nora swears keep neighbors friendly. Instead, I attached a refinance statement from Nora's old email archive, something I'd been scanning for her because her wrists ache and the printer jams. The subject line, recipe. The attachment, refi_final_2019_writer_signature. PDF. Evan, what is this? Lena typed. Why was this on your laptop? Nora called within seconds. Delete it. Delete it everywhere. But nothing ever deletes everywhere. By 7:55, Uncle Pete was asking why his name appeared as contingent beneficiary and why a second mortgage modification listed a balloon clause dated December 15, 2021. The document showed a payoff schedule, a lien recorded with the county, and a note about due-on-sale acceleration. There were initials that looked like Nora's and a notary stamp from a bank branch on Sycamore Avenue. Except I was there that day, December 15, 2021, and Nora was home with the flu, asking me to pick up ginger ale. I stared at the page. It said Nora M. Thompson, signatory, and Peter J. Hale, contingent. The payment amounts were precise, $1,104.33 until November 2026, then variable. I could hear the beginning of a storm in my mother's breathing. In 20 minutes, cousins weighed in with bad advice, and a neighbor texted, "You okay?" Saw Pete's truck arrive fast. This was the part where I should have said I'd mixed up a file, apologized, and logged off. Instead, I looked again at the timestamp metadata I had created while scanning. The timestamp said 3:18 p.m., notarized at 3:41 p.m., Sycamore branch. Nora swore she'd never stepped inside that branch in her life. I believe in evidence, dates, stamps, signatures, but evidence was about to set my family on fire, and I'd lit the match by hitting send. Then Uncle Pete knocked once, didn't wait, and walked in with a folded document that matched the header on my accidental attachment. "Before you ask, kid," he said, "someone had to protect this house." "How does my mistake prove this house is in danger, Pete?" I asked. He placed the folded document on the table and slid it toward me, palm trembling. "Because what you sent shows more than one signature," he said softly. "And one signature didn't look like Nora's, but looked exactly like mine. If that really was my signature, someone copied me where I never stood. When we were kids, Nora made rules like seatbelts. Fixed, protective, slightly annoying until the crash. 'We don't lie,' she'd say, 'even if it saves face.'" Pete was the fun uncle who smuggled in fireworks and taught us to change a tire with a butter knife. Lena kept peace by making charts and chore wheels, smoothing arguments with cookies and well-timed compliments. Money was the ghost at every birthday. Our father left early and left bills. Pete stepped in with weekend repairs and emergency loans. Gratitude calcified into debt the way plaque hugs a tooth. Quiet, stubborn, hard to see until it hurts. The last few years sharpened it all. Nora took a second job at the library. I started full-time nights in the lab. Lena, who handles HR at a furniture store, stretched to cover Nora's co-pays during a rough patch last winter. We stayed afloat because we were organized and boring. The worst fights were about who used the good scissors. Then March happened. At Lena's promotion dinner, Pete toasted her for keeping the family respectable, then leaned toward me and said, "If you ever want real money, try sales. Not those tubes and labels." I laughed it off, but the sting stuck. A week later, he joked again. "If not for me, that house would have been flipped to strangers." He clinked my glass harder than needed. It wasn't the words, it was the pattern. Pete as savior, everyone else as charity cases. Nora shrank when he bragged, and Lena smiled too big when he hinted at favors. I hated myself for noticing the imbalance and doing nothing. My job teaches tree off, handle what's bleeding now, but you can't tourniquet family pride. So when my wrong attachment landed like a grenade, each old splinter in our history turned infected. You couldn't keep a recipe straight? Pete barked. Imagine in your lab. Lena snapped at him. He helps Mom. You just peacock around. Nora, eyes on the floor, murmured. We keep this inside the house. Inside the house, meant inside the chat thread, inside the locked drawer, inside the story where Pete rescued us and never asked for repayment. The refinance rider stared up like an X-ray of a bone we set crooked years ago. It showed someone made choices without telling the patient the risk. Evan, Lena whispered, please fix this. I wanted to, but fixing meant looking straight at something we had trained ourselves to glance around. I held the paper to the window and watched the watermark bloom. The watermark said Sycamore. The notary seal belonged to E. Caro, and there was a scrawl I recognized from signing Nora's pharmacy pickups. And Pete's eyes told me there was one more page I hadn't seen. I replayed the mistake like a dashcam clip I couldn't turn off. Thursday, 7:39 p.m. I saved Nora's scanned tax receipts to /documents, taxes /2019/. Thursday, 7:41 p.m. I downloaded Lena's old email with the lemon bar recipe, thinking I'd reformat it into a printable card. Thursday, 7:42 p.m. I dragged refi_final_2019_writer_signature PDF into messages instead of lemon_bars. PDF, because the file name sat shoulder to shoulder in my download folder, the cursor slipping 1 pixel left. The preview icon looked like a blank page. I hit send. 1 click. 1 inch. Contagion. I told myself it was trivial. People send the wrong thing all the time. I even typed, oops, wrong file, and followed with the real recipe, confident the first would vanish in a family noise. But the doc preview popped up with a thumbnail of Nora's legal name, the bank logo, and a bold line, second mortgage modification, balloon writer. That phrase pulled air from the room. Nora whispered, close it. Lena said, we'll just not talk about it. My hands hovered over the keyboard while Pete's pickup headlights swung across the living room wall like a patrol car. By morning, an automated SMS from First County Bank appeared on Nora's phone. Reminder, payment due 04/15/$1,104. 33. Late fee begins April 30th. Nora has never opted into bank texts. The message included the Sycamore branch number and a reference code, 2119R. She swore she didn't authorize it. The kicker was a voicemail I forwarded months ago, another tiny error, where a clerk thanked Ms. Thompson for bringing the cosigner to the desk on December 15th. I'd forwarded it to Nora because I thought it was spam. I didn't realize forwarding preserved metadata, caller ID, time 3:52 p.m., location tag from the bank's internal system. Who signed with you, Mom? I asked. No one, she said, voice thinning. Pete paced. This is getting theatrical. Then help me untheater it, I said. Explain the dates. Pete's jaw worked like he was chewing a nail. You think a clerk never misdials? Clerks don't issue liens by pocket dial, I said. Doubt, once seated, grows like mold under wallpaper. The more I scraped, the more soft spots appeared. I downplayed the first alert. Then Lena texted a screenshot of a certified letter slip she found on the porch. County recorder. Pick up by April 12th. The letter had Pete's last name on the return address line. That was when cold certainty pooled. The mistake wasn't just that I sent the wrong PDF. The mistake was believing we had fewer secrets than strangers. And then the doorbell rang with a courier holding an envelope for me. The courier wore that trained neutrality people use when they don't want to be part of your story. Signature for receipt, he said, tapping the pad. The envelope was heavy, hand-addressed. Evan Thompson. Inside, I found a photocopy of the refinance rider, with my own signature next to Nora's, dated December 15th, 2021, witnessed by E. Caro. My name was printed correctly, middle initial and all, but the signature looked like mine only when I'm rushing and sign at the pharmacy counter, letters hooking into each other. I did sign for Nora's refills that week. I did not sign at a bank. Where did this come from? I asked the courier. Client requested delivery, he said. Picked up at Sycamore branch. Pete exhaled through his nose, like a bull hearing a gate thud. Someone's trying to frame me, I said. Or you forgot, Pete countered. We have my time card. I said. Lab shift started noon, ended 8. Badge scans at 12:04 and 7:58. I wasn't at Sycamore at 3:41 p.m. Nora sat down as if the chair were suddenly missing a leg. I didn't want this, she whispered. I wanted to keep the house. Her voice cracked on house, and every old gratitude to Pete. Every roof patch, every furnace fix, tilted into a ledger we'd never balanced. In the group chat, our cousin Megan wrote, Evan, why sign and tell no one? I typed back. I didn't. Lena called me from the driveway, voice small. Can we handle this without papers? At 6:10 p.m., a process server slid a white packet through the barely opened door. Notice of substitution of beneficiary. It read, along with an assignment recorded on January 6, 2022, transferring an interest from First County Bank to Hale Family Holdings, LLC. Pete closed his eyes like someone had finally said a taboo out loud. Hale, his last name. A limited liability company with a P.O. box and a manager listed as P. Hale. The packet included a payment history, on time until a 30-day delinquency last December, followed by promise to pay notes and a scribbled call with E. Thompson, approved extension. Who is E. Thompson in their notes? Lena asked. Pete looked at me. I looked at Nora. Nora stared at the carpet and said nothing. This was where pride wanted me to shout, where fear wanted me to apologize for the wrong attachment and pretend the papers were fake. Instead, the lab tech in me lined up facts on the counter like vials ready for testing. Timestamps, badge scans, caller IDs, notary number, corporate registration, payment ledger. And one piece missing that could make everything click, the county's file for the recorded lien. So I grabbed my keys and headed to the county recorder's office. The county recorder's lobby smelled like dust and toner, a scent that promises answers if you're patient. I pulled the ticket, B117. The monitor crawled through B111, B112, B113. I used the wait to search the state's business registry. Hale Family Holdings, LLC filed on November 3, 2021. Registered agent, a UPS store address. Manager, Peter J. Hale. Purpose, property management. Fine print, boring words, dangerous arrangement. When my number flashed, I walked to the counter with palms that felt like they belonged to someone else. Hi, I said, looking up lien and deed records for 14, Oak Lane, Thompson owner, last 5 years. The clerk, Karen, according to her nameplate, typed and raised an eyebrow. Busy address this month. She slid a screen toward me. Here's your recorded mortgage, 2012. Modification, 2019. Balloon Rider, December 2021. Substitution of beneficiary, January 2022. And notice of trustee's sale, posted last week for May 28th. My mouth went dry. Trustee's sale. Foreclosure auction, she said gently, pointing to the posting date, April 8th, 9:12 a.m. If cured by May 21st, sale is canceled. I wrote dates, amounts, document numbers like I was logging specimens. Doc hashtag 19-8847. Balloon Rider December 15th, 21. Substitution January 6th, 22. Doc hashtag 22-0176. Notice of sale 04/08/ Doc hashtag 3412. The notary number matched the rider in our envelope. E. Caro, commission expiring 2023. Karen printed copies and stamped them received. You can also request the notary journal, she added. State law lets signers inspect entries. She gave me a form. There's a phone number. On the sidewalk, I called Sycamore. Records for notary E. Caro, I said, expecting voicemail. Instead, a calm voice answered, Caro speaking. I gave my name, the date, the document. Pages rustled. Entry for December 15th, 21, Caro read. 2 signers, Nora M. Thompson and a pause. Evan Thompson. Another pause. Driver's license ends in 7731. State ID for Nora ends in 2014. My license ends in 7731. I pulled my wallet, checked, and felt my stomach drop as if the elevator skipped a floor. Can you read the address? I asked. On your license? 14, Oak Lane. Any notes? Signer appeared rushed, said late for shift. I was on shift at noon that day. Someone presented my number and my name at 3:41 p.m. with my license digits. I hadn't lost my wallet. My badge scans show me inside the hospital at 3:41. Someone had my information. Someone close. I stared at my reflection in the bank window and saw a man's face I barely recognized. Tired, angry, scared, and, for the first time, ready to stop apologizing for a mistake that exposed the truth rather than created it. I dialed Aunt. No, we don't have an aunt in this version, so I dialed Lena. Meet me at Sycamore, I said. Bring Mom. We're requesting security footage. Because if my name's signed the paper, my face better have too. Security said they keep 30 days of footage, which put December 2021 far beyond reach. But I asked for incident logs and visitor sign-ins anyway. The manager, a square-shouldered woman named Ruiz, met us in a glass cubicle that smelled faintly of dry erase marker. Nora sat stiff, hands folded. Lena kept catching my eye like she wanted to borrow courage. We can't produce video that old, Ruiz said, but we do archive notary journals and internal appointment calendars. She typed, frowning. There is a December 15th entry. Accommodation signing. Parking lot. Customer requested outdoor notarization due to illness at home. My chest cooled. Outdoor. Parking lot. A notary can verify identity from government ID. A masked face in winter doesn't help. Do you record plate numbers? I asked. Sometimes, Ruiz said. Notes show silver pickup, temporary tag. We looked at Pete. He lifted his hands. Lots of silver pickups. Did you come that day? I asked. Pete shrugged. I drive a green one. Ruiz printed a copy of the notary log entry and the calendar note. She stamped them with the bank's date seal. You can subpoena any archive data if you open a case, she added. Otherwise, this is all I can share. Nora finally spoke. I don't remember any of this. It wasn't defensive. It was frightened. On the curb, wind pushed traffic grid into our socks. Lena took my sleeve. Could someone have borrowed your license? I patted my wallet. I'd never lost it, but I had handed it off, twice, for pharmacy pickups Nora couldn't make. Both times, Pete said he'd grab the bags when I was slammed at work. He joked, I'm practically family. He is family. We drove home in silence broken only by turn signals. I sat at the kitchen table with a spiral notebook and created 2 lists, mistake I made and things others did. Under my mistake I wrote, wrong attachment, forwarded voicemail. Under the other list, second mortgage, substitution to Hale Family Holdings, trustee's sale date, notary entry with my number, outdoor signing, silver pickup. Responsibility mattered, but proportion mattered more. The lab trains you to isolate variables. One variable loomed, signed in ink. I opened my laptop and searched the state notary complaint process while Lena fetched Nora a blanket. We need a lawyer, she whispered. Someone boring and careful. I remembered a calm, plain-spoken attorney Patience praised for explaining medical bills in English. I looked up Attorney Shaw and left a message that couldn't wait. Shaw's office was a narrow storefront with a bell that chimed like a bicycle. Shelves of binders lined the walls, labeled with dates, not drama. He listened while I laid out the timeline as if reading a lab report. December 15th appointment entry. Notary journal. My license digits. Substitution to Pete's LLC. Trustee's sale posting for May 28th. He asked for documents, and I slid folders across his desk until the wood disappeared. Good, he said. You kept originals where possible. Nora stared at a plant and whispered, I didn't sign in a parking lot. Shaw nodded without judgment. Memory is a witness, but documents testify. We gather both. He explained terms slowly. A second mortgage modification adds conditions. A balloon rider means payments stay low until a large balance comes due. A substitution of beneficiary transfers who gets paid. A trustee's sale is the foreclosure auction if the default isn't cured. If an LLC controlled by your uncle holds the beneficial interest, Shaw said, then your family owes your family, which complicates motives. He tapped the notary number. If your signature was used without your knowledge, that's fraud. If your ID was presented without you, that's also fraud. If your mother authorized any of this under pressure, there might be undue influence. He wrote 3 paths on a legal pad. Cure or negotiate, challenge documents, expose and litigate. Which fixes the sale clock? I asked. Cure or negotiate buys time, he said. Challenge requires evidence. What evidence qualifies? Notary's journal entry you have. We need the journal page scan. We want bank internal memos, appointment logs, and any audio of the parking lot signing. And driver's license access. Who saw your numbers when? I told him about pharmacy pickups and Pete's helpfulness. Shaw raised an eyebrow. When did you last show Pete your card? I gave dates. We'll subpoena the pharmacy's camera footage, he said. If he captured an image, that's one route. He slid a release form to Nora. Also, we'll request the UPS store mailbox records for the LLC, who picked up certified mail. Lena squeezed my arm. Is this going to explode our family? Shaw didn't smile. Your family is already on fire. We're choosing whether to open windows. He asked for one more thing. Bring your sister to a meeting with your uncle. Record, with notice. Let him speak freely before counsel chills the conversation. My stomach tightened. Dinner Sunday, Lena said. We can invite him. Shaw nodded. Before that, I'll meet the bank. He handed me a printed list of questions. Keep your voice level. Facts first. And as we left, Shaw warned that someone else might already be watching us. The next morning, I visited the county clerk to request copies of the trustee's sale posting and any affidavit of mailing. The clerk, different building, same scent of toner, stamped my request and slid a thin stack across. The affidavit showed notices mailed to Nora M. Thompson, occupant, and to Hale Family Holdings, LLC, both signed as received by a scribble that looked like Pete's lowercase p dragging. At noon, my lab supervisor asked if I needed time off. Family thing, I said, and he nodded with the gravity of someone who's navigated aging parents and unpaid taxes. Keep a log, he advised. Dates help when your brain fogs. In the afternoon, Ruiz from Sycamore called back. One more internal note, she said, reading from a screen. A staffer named Caro wrote, customer unable to come inside due to caretaker's illness. Cosigner verified by ID. Signatures compared to prior file. My record had prior signatures, school loans, car title, all scanned somewhere, all reference material. If someone had my number and scrawled convincingly, a match wasn't hard. I thanked Ruiz and hung up to find Pete in our driveway, studying the mailbox with exaggerated concentration. Big man, he said, turning. Taking the house public now? I'm taking it truthful, I said. He laughed. Truth doesn't pay the balloon. Did you pick up a notary in a parking lot with my name? Watch your words, kid. Watch your paperwork, I replied, and Lena stepped between us. Sunday dinner, she said, voice shaking. We sit. We talk. No ambushes. Pete smirked. Glad someone remembers manners. He tapped the mailbox. Neighbors love a mystery. After he drove off, Nora pulled me into the kitchen and set down an envelope. I kept this, she said. Inside was a 2-year-old letter, and signed, offering bridge help to keep Oak Lane safe, promising no public records, family discretion, contingent beneficiary to ensure stewardship. The typeface matched Pete's church flyers. Why didn't you tell us? I asked. Nora pressed her hands to her face. Because I knew what you'd say. Shame and love can look alike at middle age. Both pull you inward like woolen ring. I scanned the envelope for prints I'd never collect and wrote the date. Postmarked November 10th, 2021. The timeline tightened around our throats. Sunday loomed like a courtroom without rules. Shaw texted the plan. Ask open questions. Verify details aloud. Offer to resolve if he acknowledges process errors. If not, present copies. No shouting. I practiced in the mirror like an actor playing a version of myself who could endure. And then my phone buzzed with an unknown number and a 2-word warning. The text read, check mailbox. I stepped into the dusk to find a manila folder with no return name, just a rubber band and a faint smell of gasoline. Inside, printed screenshots of a banking app showing transfers from Hale Family Holdings LLC to a gambling site, dates scattered through spring and summer last year. Amounts, for $100, $800, $2,500, for $1,200. Memo lines, maintenance, short-term, utilities. A withdrawal at an ATM near Pete's church after midnight. My throat tightened. The funds trail didn't explain who signed the rider, but it drew a circle around motive, not stewardship, appetite. I called Lena inside and laid the pages on the table. She covered her mouth. If this is real, she whispered, he used Mom's house to fund bets. Nora sat slowly, eyes skimming lines like they were written in a language she almost knew. People can change, she said weakly. I wanted to agree, but timestamps aren't opinions. We need metadata, I said. Account numbers. IP addresses. A bank will stonewall unless a lawyer asks. On cue, Shah answered my call, voice steady. Bring those tomorrow. We'll subpoena. He added, do not confront him with the gambling until we confirm custodianship of the account. He'll say these are fakes. At work that night, I labeled blood tubes and thought about jurisdiction. The body has systems that fail quietly. By the time symptoms surface, the disease has been writing its own minutes for months. Families are the same. We run on agreed myths until a test shows something unflattering, and suddenly everyone is an expert witness for memory. I took notes between specimens, who texted when, who stood where, how Pete's keys jingled when he lied. At 3 a.m., a janitor asked if I was okay, and I answered honestly, no, but I'm documenting. The next morning, Shah scanned the gambling screenshots and the LLC records and nodded. This becomes leverage, he said, not revenge. He drafted a letter to Sycamore. Hold sale, pending investigation into possible fraudulent notarization and misuse of proceeds by assignee. Banks dislike reputational risk, he said. Attach the phrase, elder financial abuse. He looked at Nora kindly. I'm sorry, but that's the accurate category if your brother leveraged your ignorance. Nora flinched. He meant to help, she whispered. Intent sits on one scale, outcome on the other, Shah said gently. Courts weigh both. We set Sunday for 6 sharp. Lena would cook. I would read questions. Nora would speak only to confirm her memory. Pete would be invited as family, warned the conversation would be recorded. I put my phone on a tripod and tested the mic. At 5:58, Pete arrived carrying a cardboard box that rattled. He refused to sit at first, preferring to lean and loom. What's with the camera? He asked. Transparency, Lena said. You like that word at church. He kissed her cheek, ignoring me, then set the box on the table as if it were a gift. Inside lay chaos, dog-eared receipts, printed emails, 3 manila folders labeled with a thick marker, house, utilities, ME. He fanned papers like a magician. See, he said. Order. Accountability. I pressed record. The phone chimed. Pete rolled his eyes. Fine. Ask your little questions, lab boy. Did you arrange an outdoor notarization on December 15th, 2021? I asked. I arranged that your mother could keep her home, he said. Did you present my driver's license information? You were there, he said too quickly. I was at the hospital. Badge scanned 3:41 p.m. He shrugged. Maybe it was later. Notary journal says 3:41. He smiled thin. Journals aren't gospel. Nora murmured. I didn't sign. You did, Pete said softly. You just don't remember. Flew, remember? Flew at home, Lena said, not in a truck. I slid copies across. The journal note, the appointment log, the substitution to his LLC, the trustee's sale posting. He didn't touch them. We can cure this, I said evenly. But we need to unwind your control of the beneficiary interest and correct the notarization if it was misrepresented. Pete laughed without humor. There is no we. I hold the paper. You owe me gratitude, not discovery. He reached into the ME folder and pulled a single sheet I recognized, the same refinance rider I had accidentally sent. Only this one had a handwritten note at the top. Paid taxes when you couldn't, P. Lena's voice thinned. Is Mom's house collateral for your other accounts? What accounts? Pete's eyes narrowed. Maintenance, I said. Short term. Utilities. He froze for a heartbeat, then smiled. People write stupid memos. I kept my face calm. We can go to the bank together tomorrow with Attorney Shah, I said. If you're confident in the paperwork, we'll resolve this quietly. He tapped the box with one finger. Or I can dump this in the street and tell everyone how you mooch. His threat was a chorus sung out of tune, but there was a tremor in his hands that read like fear, not triumph. Nora closed her eyes. Pete, she said, tell the truth. I can handle truth. He stared at the camera, smoothed his hair, and chose his audience. Then he lifted a checkbook and promised he could make everything disappear. Name your number, Pete said, flipping the checkbook like a deck of cards. We stop the sale. I sell the beneficiary back for $1. I eat the fees. You apologize for dragging this family through mud. He was gambling even now, betting our panic would buy his absolution. Lena's knuckles whitened on a dish towel. This isn't a bake sale, she said. It's a house. I tried to keep my voice gentle. If it's easy to transfer back, why not do it? Pete smiled. Because I want you to learn respect. I opened Shaw's list. Did you, at any time, use funds from Hale Family Holdings LLC for wagering or personal expenses unrelated to the mortgage? He scoffed. My LLC is none of your business. It is, I said, when it controls Mom's house. He flicked his wrist. No judge will care. Banks care, I said. Elder financial abuse is an audit trigger. His gaze flicked to Nora, calculating. You think I abused you? He asked softly. She shook her head. I think you kept secrets, she said. I think you like being the hero so much you moved lines and called it help. He swallowed. Lines move when roofs leak. So did you move my signature? I asked. He bristled. Why would I need your chicken scratch? Because the bank asked for a co-signer. You're blowing smoke. I set down my pen. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Sycamore Branch, I said. Attorney Shaw will be there with a request to inspect notary journal pages and the appointment log and to hold the trustee's sale pending inquiry. Pete's jaw flexed. I have work. Bring your box, I said. Bring your receipts. Lena added. Bring humility. He snorted and reached for the camera. I blocked his hand. We're recording, I said. Please don't touch my property. He leaned in close, breath sour with coffee. You think you're a man now, he hissed. The old me would have flinched. The me who missent a PDF and then followed the evidence held the stare. Nora slid a mug between us like a peace token. Tomorrow, she said softly. Pete tapped the checkbook against his palm, weighing next moves. Fine, he said. 9. He grabbed the box and left with a door slam that rattled the picture frames. In the odd quiet, Lena whispered, He's going to try something. I nodded. We checked the locks and washed 3 dishes we didn't need to wash. At 8:20 a.m., Shaw texted, I'm at Sycamore. Ruiz is expecting us. Bring calm. And as we pulled in, Pete's truck already idled in the fire lane. Inside the conference room, Ruiz placed a stack of documents between us like cards in a high-stakes game. Shaw thanked her and turned to Pete. Mr. Hale, we'll review and you may respond. Pete's jaw clenched. Shaw began with the notary journal page. It was a scan now, clean and undeniable. 2 signatures, 2 ID numbers, a timestamp, the note, outdoor signing, customer's caretaker ill. Caretaker, Shaw said mildly. Who was ill? Pete shrugged. Nora had flu. Caretaker ill refers to the caretaker, Shaw replied. Who was the caretaker? Pete blinked. I don't know their lingo. Ruiz slid the appointment calendar printout. A staffer noted uncle insisted, customer anxious. Co-signer says late for shift. Shaw looked at me. Were you late that day? I was on time, I said. Pete said, he's always late. And Ruiz's mouth tightened. Shaw turned the page. Internal memo, January 6th. Documenting substitution of beneficiary to Hale Family Holdings LLC to streamline communications. He placed a final sheet on top, a compliance email reminding staff to avoid parking lot signings without manager approval. The email was dated December 14th. Shaw cleared his throat. We request that First County Bank hold the trustee's sale pending review of the notarization circumstances and potential misuse of proceeds by the beneficiary assignee. Ruiz nodded. We can elevate, she said. If you file a formal complaint, we have to respond. Pete slammed his palm. This is theater. Shaw nodded calmly. If so, the stage is well lit. He turned to Pete. Did you use LLC funds for personal wagering? Pete smiled thinly. Prove the account is mine. Shaw slid the anonymous screenshots. We will subpoena account ownership and IP logs, he said. If it's clean, you're vindicated. Pete laughed. You're bluffing. Not entirely, Shaw said, tapping the trustee's sale notice. But here's the negotiation. Assign the beneficial interest back to Nora today. Sign a stipulation that you will not encumber the property again without her written consent and independent counsel, and we will not file a complaint with the State Notary Board or the Attorney General's Elder Abuse Unit. Yet. Pete stared at Nora, weighing her love against my evidence. Nora's voice, small but steady. Please, Peter. He looked at the window. I need time. Shaw shook his head. Sale date is May 28th. Time ends. Pete's hand trembled, then stilled. Fine, he said. Draft it. Ruiz left to fetch a notary. Pete checked his phone under the table, thumb frantic. A minute later, a bank employee hurried back, whispering to Ruiz, who paled slightly. Someone had already wired funds out of the LLC account that morning. Ruiz excused herself to make a call. Shaw wrote furiously. Pete's eyes darted. Bathroom, he muttered, rising. Shaw blocked the door with a polite step. After signatures, he said. Pete sank back, seething. Ruiz returned. Compliance is freezing all outgoing LLC transfers pending review, she said. Pete's face pinched. You can't. We can while investigating, she said. Shaw slid the assignment form to Pete. Sign here to transfer the beneficial interest back to Nora. Pete's pen hovered. What do I get? He asked. Shaw answered calmly. You avoid an immediate fraud report and a restraining order, and we help develop a repayment plan for any funds you legitimately advanced. For a long breath, the only sound was the climate vent. Then Pete signed, messy, defiant. Nora signed next, hands steady. Ruiz notarized, stamping with finality. Shaw slid a second document. An agreement prohibiting further encumbrances without Nora's independent counsel. Pete balked. I'm family. That's why it's necessary, Shaw said. He signed, jaw clenched so hard a tendons cord in his neck. The transfer executed, Ruiz printed a hold notice on the trustee's sale. Sale paused pending cure, she said. I felt relief like cool water. But relief has a half-life when you've seen people move lines. Shaw turned to me. You still need to decide about the complaint, he said. I pictured the notary log, my ID digits, the outdoor signing, the calendar note. I'm filing, I said. Nora flinched. He's my brother. And you're my mother, I said gently. And you deserve protection that isn't a favor. Pete snorted. Enjoy your righteousness. Shaw didn't blink. Enjoy your pause. Outside, Lena cried in the car, then laughed through tears. You did it, she said. We did the first thing. I corrected. Now comes the bill. My supervisor texted asking if I could pick up a shift to cover someone out sick. Yes, I wrote. Bills don't freeze with accounts. That evening, I typed the notary complaint and emailed the Attorney General's intake with our documentation. I also emailed Ruiz to request the internal compliance email chain. At midnight, a new text arrived from an unknown number. A photo of our house with the porch light on, time-stamped 11:58. Caption, Sleep tight, hero. I felt anger first, then resolve. I saved the photo. I added it to the file. I called Shaw and left a voicemail. And at dawn, Lena pounded my door and said Pete was gone. He hadn't vanished. He had retreated to the only stage where he still controlled the script, his fixer-upper. The front door was open a few inches, the house smelling of cut wood and failed projects. We found him in the kitchen, elbows on the table, staring at a lone lottery ticket. He looked smaller, as if the contract had siphoned off a costume. I was going to fix it, he said without turning. I always fix it. Nora sat across from him, not touching. You fixed it with other people's signatures, she said quietly. He winced. He told his why in sentences that stumbled. Church roof repairs, a friend's bad tip, a roll that hit once and made him believe in a system that didn't exist. He said he'd meant to cover the balloon before it came due, to be the hero one more time. He sniffed at the word abuse, as if it were a slur, and I watched shame wrestle self-pity inside his face. I couldn't stand watching you two scrape, he said to Lena and me. I thought, if I handle the paper, you handle your little lives. The contempt he tried to hide colored every syllable. We're not little, Lena said, wiping eyes she didn't bother to hide. We're careful. There's a difference. Shaw arrived, nodded at our circle, and sat at the end like a kindly referee. He laid out the next steps in gentle bullets. Convert the hold into a formal cancellation by curing arrears. Draft a payment plan that Nora can afford without Pete's interference. Create a living trust with clear rules. File the notary complaint. Keep the option to report misuse of LLC funds. Boundaries, he said, are not punishments. They are railings on a high stair. We executed 3 documents that morning. A stipulation of no contact regarding financial matters between Pete and Nora without counsel present. A limited power of attorney allowing me to request records for the property. And a family memorandum requiring 2 signatures, notarized, indoors, for any future encumbrance. Pete signed each with the reluctance of a man surrendering keys he thought were birthright. "You're exiling me," he muttered. "We're inviting you to be a brother, not a banker," I said. He stared at the lottery ticket like it might hatch. We left him there with a list of gamblers' anonymous meetings and the number for a counselor. On the porch, Nora leaned into me with a weight she'd hidden for years. "You were kind," she said. "You were brave." I didn't feel brave. I felt like a man who had mislabeled a file and then refused to unsee what it revealed. At home, I taped the trustee's sale hold to the fridge like a child's drawing of a rescued house. And that night, a certified letter arrived that made my hands shake. It was from the bank's compliance department. They had reviewed the notarization irregularities and were initiating internal corrective measures, including retraining and a policy change forbidding outdoor signings without manager approval, retroactive notation of exceptions, and a courtesy audit of files where caretaker illness appeared. They thanked me for the documentation and enclosed a cashier's check representing waived late fees and a rate adjustment offer if we refinanced under Nora's sole name after counseling. It wasn't an apology, but it was institutional accountability, rare, clean, quietly revolutionary. I put the check on the table and called Nora and Lena into the kitchen. We made tea, not speeches. "We'll accept," Nora said, after the counseling. She meant both kinds. We found a therapist who specializes in family systems and money shame. Session by session, we unlearned the habit of letting gratitude by silence. We wrote down new rules. We text receipts to each other. We do not sign outdoors. We do not use family as a synonym for no questions. I kept working shifts, labeling tubes, and trusting process. On weekends, Lena and I raked leaves together, laughing at how quickly the yard looked respectable when we didn't avoid it. Respect is a practice, not a spotlight. Pete started attending meetings. He sent one message, forwarded through Shaw, saying he was sorry for making a mess while trying to mop. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. We set conditions for contact. Monthly coffee in public, no money talk, no paperwork. He agreed. We did not enable, we did not exile. We built a small bridge and posted a speed limit. On the day the bank confirmed the trustee's sale was canceled, I stood on the porch at sunset and listened to the quiet hum of a house that wasn't leaving us. Here's what I learned. Mistakes are teachers with terrible bedside manners. A wrong attachment forced a right conversation. Secrets had grown in our family like mold in a wall we painted over every spring. We peeled the paint. We repaired the studs. We installed rails on the stairs. Dignity isn't pride. It's procedure that protects love from panic. If you're older and tired, ask for help with papers. If you're younger and busy, slow down and read the line above your signature. Keep a log. Keep your licenses to yourself. And if a document says you were somewhere you weren't, follow it to where your family truly is.